I'm Richard from EnvisionSelfHealing.com, and in this blog I'm going to be talking about my optic atrophy and an exercise I use to help it. So first I want to just familiarize you with what optic atrophy is. There's actually many forms of it, but first of all it affects the optic nerve. And the optic nerve comes in from the visual cortex, goes through the thalamus into the back of the eyeball. And it's what carries the visual information from the retina to the brain. So these fibers within the optic nerve are actually the part of the ganglion cells, the axons of the ganglion cells. The ganglion cells sit right above the photoreceptors, the rods and cones. So they're like the transmission lines back to the brain from the photoreceptors that make up the receptive cells of the retina, the rods and cones that actually respond to light. So they respond to the photoreceptors, rods and cones respond to light, transfer that electrical impulse to the ganglion cells, which are right there in the retina, and those cells have the other part of those cells run through the optic nerve. They're very long nerve cells that then go back through the thalamus, which is sort of before the brain. It filters visual information, kind of organizes it, and then from there goes back to the brain. So optic atrophy usually refers to some sort of atrophy of these cells, these axons or the ganglion cells, well, maybe the axons, in the optic nerve. And there are many causes for it, too many to go through in this blog, so I'll just refer to the one that I have. And actually I have to refer to two possible kinds that I have because I'm still exploring which kind I have. I know I have a form of autosomal, either dominant or recessive optic atrophy that's an inherited optic atrophy. It's not brought on by trauma or tumor. There's many other reasons you could get an optic atrophy. Mine's inherited. And ironically, I really still don't know whether I have the recessive form or the dominant form. That's something I need to research. It's a little confusing in my case because the recessive form is very rare, but it comes on early in childhood. It's apparent early in childhood. The dominant form doesn't usually become apparent until you're 4 to 6 years old, and then it comes on slowly after that. And in my case, and my brother has the same disease, we were apparent almost immediately. And but here's the rub, is that 3 out of 4 children in my family got it. And my father had it, and an uncle of his had it, and my father's father had it too. So that pattern seems to reflect more of a dominant form. So my symptoms are more like the recessive, and my family history is more like the dominant. So that's a bit of research I need to do. But in any case, the end effect is there's less nerve cells active in the optic nerve, and the result is a loss of acuity. It's an overall blurring of vision. The other symptom I have is called centrocecal scotomas, which is essentially an enlarged blind spot. Let me show you on the inside of the eye. So the optic nerve comes into the back of the eyeball, and there's a point where it enters the eyeball, which is called the optic disc, where there is no vision because the optic nerve cells are entering there. It's sort of like the entry port in the back of the eyeball. We all have, every normal eye has a blind spot there, right there where it enters. The other point you should know about is it's not very big. Neither of these are very big, but there's a point, a little yellow spot called the macula, which is where you see clear vision. So you have a little spot called the optic disc where there's no vision, and then you have this macula where all the sharp vision is. And there's a normal blind spot around the optic disc where the optic disc nerve enters, but mine extends towards the macula in both eyes. And so that's what's called a scotoma, is this area of loss of vision. I have an oval-shaped scotoma The central cecal means it's just in between the macula and the optic disc. So I have one in my right eye and one in my left eye, and the one in my left eye is bigger than the one in my right eye. The one in my left eye actually intrudes upon the macula to the point where it's very close to my central vision. So for me, one of the key exercises for my optic atrophy is to stimulate that blind spot, to find areas where I still have vision, but it's sort of like a partial vision. And I'm going to be stimulating that area. That's one of my main exercises for the optic atrophy. So I'm trying to bring some vision back to the central cecal scotoma, the enlarged blind spot that's near my central vision. And in particular, I would love to bring back some of the cells in my left eye that are very close to the macula, or very close to even the fovea, the really small pit where the sharpest vision is in the macula. Because if I could stimulate those cells, I would return some of the sharp macular vision to my left eye, and it would really add to the clarity of my vision. I also want to stimulate the one on the right, but it's smaller and is not such a problem for me for some reason. So I'm going to take you into my my cave, or my dark room. I've created a room with blinds that are light-proof, and well, not really light-proof, that's a problem. And then on top of that, I have light-proof curtains as well. So they're basically both really dense, and between the two of them I create a pretty dark room. So I'm going to be doing this exercise in the dark. It's also the room I do my palming in. So let me turn the camera off and take you in there and show you the exercise. So here I am in my dark room, dark cave, and you can see I have thick curtains that I ordered, and they're really light-proof curtains, and then these are light-proof blinds. They're completely dense. Between the two, it gets pretty dark in here. The other pieces of equipment I use are a regular old eye patch from the drugstore, nothing fancy, because I only want to be using one eye at a time. If you have both eyes open, one eye will compensate for the blind spot of the other. So you need to you only need to be using one eye at a time in this exercise so you can see the blind spot, see my blind spot. Unless you have blind spots, you're not going to be doing this exercise. So anyway, I also have a small flashing light. Looks like this. And I think they're used for, believe it or not, in raves, and they're sort of like a decorative thing. You can find them under rave apparel in Amazon. And so a little flashing light like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be stimulating my blind spot with this little flashing light while I'm wearing the eye patch. So sort of think of a pirate going to a rave, and then you'll get the exercise. So I'll be holding it like this and trying to find the blind spot and then stimulate it with this light. Like, actually, I can do it with the light on right now, just to give you an idea. See, like right there, I'm looking just at the camera lens, and the light is just inside my point of fixation, or my macula, and it kind of disappears on me. So then I'm playing with that light. Like there, it's almost gone, but I can still see it flashing a bit, but it decreases in intensity and sharpness, and there it's almost completely gone. But then if I move it up a little bit, it reappears. If I move it down a little bit, it reappears. Here it's really apparent as I move it out. It goes through my blind spot, or my scotoma, and then it reappears as it hits the macula. So this area near the macula in my left eye is the area I would love to stimulate, to give it more activity give more activity to those cells. If I could reawaken those cells, then I could add to my central vision. And then my left eye would be used more. So let me turn off the lights and see if you can see anything. We'll give it a shot. So here we are. Oh, we'll get the light going. Oh, there you can see the light at least. So that's what I'm looking at, is this light, and basically I'm putting it near my eye and moving it around. So now you can see the only thing in the room visible is this light. So I've eliminated everything but the light, so my eye won't be active except when it sees the light. And then I just move it right into my blind spot, which is right there. I move it around, move it to the edge of the blind spot, trying to stimulate those dormant cells. And I guess I know they're not completely dead because I see something there. There is some activity. If you're extrapolating from this exercise to your own eye condition, then that's the concept, is can you stimulate areas that are weak, cells that are weak? Can you reinvigorate cells that are weak? And that's the point. So I would probably do this under 5 minutes because, let me turn the lights back on. I would do this exercise under 5 minutes at a time, because you don't want to, wow, things did get clearer. It's interesting. That's the effect you want. I just noticed as I'm looking at the clock across behind the camera there, I really can see a little sharper right now. And all I did was stimulate that blind spot. But it really engaged my left eye a little bit and woke it up. So I would probably do this for about 5 minutes at a time, and you don't want to overdo it because you can strain. The brain's not used to using that area, so you don't want to like hit it straight on with a lot of activity. You want to sort of ease your way into it. So it's a very simple exercise. If you have other blind spots in your peripheral, in your field of visual field somewhere, you would use the same technique. You'd go into a dark room. You can also take black paper like this and completely mask off areas you can see. That's the more extreme version of this exercise. And then you just sort of tape this mask all over your face, and then you stimulate your blind areas with that with those flashing lights or some form of flashing light. So that's my optic atrophy exercise. If you have optic atrophy, you can give this a try. Find some flashing lights under rave material, as I say, in Amazon. We're going to try and put some up on our website. We haven't quite got it yet on there, so you can order them through Amazon. Get the flashing lights, get a simple patch, get in a dark room. If you don't have a dark room, sometimes bathrooms don't have windows in them, but you have to avoid the mirrors because the light will reflect in the mirror. Those often work, or a walk-in closet works too. And just get a flashing light patch and start stimulating your blind spots wherever you have them. So give this exercise a try, see for yourself.